So, welcome back to another episode of Tidbits with Tracy. We are so lucky to have today's guest on who is going to be bringing so much insight into the importance of mental health, not only as a human going through these wacky human experiences, but in the lens of an executive or business owner or a team leader, and how important it is to maintain and keep maintaining that mental health. So, Nita, my dear friend, welcome. And why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yes, thank you so much for this opportunity. I am thrilled to be here. I am Nita Batta, very original coaching practice name, Nita Batta Inc. It is a bi-coastal minority certified coaching practice that focuses on mental health, particularly with executives and those in leadership positions. And so some of my backstory is, I grew up South Asian American, child of immigrant parents, in a culture where sort of asking for help was really taboo, and you kind of just put your head down and figured it out. It was always very intriguing to me. Nobody was raising their hand or offering resources. And so I ended up pursuing a master's in social work from the University of Pennsylvania, where I focused on a macro track. And my career began in program development with fundraising. And because of my academic training, I had pretty limited client interface in my roles and responsibilities. And I slowly came to identify the fact that that was sort of the few and far between opportunities I had really spoke to me. And so I decided to pivot and move more into the clinical field. And so my coaching practice was born in New York City. And I now I'm in San Francisco. So I have my professional license both in New York and California.
Wow, incredible story. I mean, the work that you're doing is amazing. It's inspiring to all. So, let's be real. The world of mental health is a challenging one. I can't imagine the everyday, just strength you have to have as you meet with clients now. So, what inspires you? What, inspires you to keep going?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. I think, the idea of coaching, it's been around for a long time. And employee assistance programs, I mean, they're becoming a bit antiquated, but they have existed for decades. And I think, coaching's popularity has been helped by the change in public perception. I think instead of seeing coaching as a sign of weakness that a person is not performing well, it's become a chance to establish a process where an individual can perform even better. So, if you work in an organization where you have access to a coach, it really highlights a lot of care and compassion within the system. And that cultivates a culture of appreciation. And so, what inspired me to put sort of coaching under my umbrella is that social work, the background and the training is a lot of empathy, reflective listening, rephrasing, and so many of the skills that are used in social work practice are also used in my coaching practice. So my lens is really unique in that I can sort of use these philosophical commonalities, such as a strength-based perspective and non-judgmental, client-driven approach. Um,
Yeah, I think it's incredible because I come from a perspective of being a woman executive, and those services were never offered to me. And quite frankly, we haven't offered those services to our team. And it's really eye-opening because there is unfortunately, still a stigma around mental health. And it is shocking. I'm a huge proponent of mental health. I personally go to therapy. I think your mental health is just as important as your physical health. So it's still shocking that there's that stigma around it, especially in the business environment. So, what advice would you give to executives who are just now starting to evaluate mental health or starting to figure out if, what are the next steps if there's something that they're struggling with?
so yes, first, I think I want to just point out when you talk about individual therapy, and then sort of you use coaching
Mhm.
synonymously, I think there's a lot of accountability that happens in these sessions. I think you might start out asking, what are your goals? What is that you want to accomplish next? And then the real work is sort of identifying challenges in the past that you faced and what were your coping mechanisms to overcome them. That's the strength that you want to, sprinkle in moving forward. So yes, it can be, there will be challenges that unfold, but there's also, a way to think about it as an opportunity and room for growth. Um, I think, speaking to where we are now, COVID has been a great equalizer in the sense that everybody's experienced some type of pain, right? And it could be loss of control, loss of agency to make decisions. Everybody, leadership, executive, employee had something superimposed on them. So being vulnerable in a leadership position and making others aware that, hey, I was affected too, that is sort of an act of kindness, if you will, and it humanizes you as a leader. So I think particularly now, a collaborative approach is really paramount moving forward. I think making sure we build a coalition with one another, reframing the narrative, like this is what we used to do, that's not going to work moving forward. So how can we navigate this new space together? And there's hybrid, and there's those who must come in. So there's a lot, and it's unfolding every day.
It's true. And, my team always hears me say this as well, but I truly believe a strong leader can be empathetic, can be compassionate, that those qualities don't make you weak. And I think that, I preach that new generations of leaders are coming in. I think as more women and more diverse individuals are at the table, they're bringing those perspectives to it. And I think having a level of coaching would be so important because it's, you do go through a lot of stress. And if you're not coping with that in a healthy manner, you're not able to show up for your team, wholly the way that you need to as a leader.
That's
Um,
right.
so what trends have you seen over the past couple of years? This is a new effort and endeavor for you, right? Breaking into this coaching space,
Sure.
correct? So
Correct.
you're rebranding, refocusing. I know you said you saw a niche and a hole in this area. So what trends have you seen in the past in this mental health space that led you to where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. I think I use the word vulnerability. I mean, another big ITY word is inclusivity. And I think there is a way for leadership to be really empowering, right? And inclusivity doesn't have to be loud, it doesn't have to be proud. It can be quiet inclusivity. And I think that's just about making space for others to share your platform, right? Not just share the platform, but be able to walk away from it as well. And giving somebody else a chance to shine. And I think that's an actionable item that makes someone's life better, right? So, and by making, and that could be their quality of their work improves, the quality of their interpersonal relationships improve, their work relationships, so on and so forth. And I mean, if you truly believe that everybody has an equal opportunity to thrive, I think the practice then becomes being inclusive in every moment. And sort of what I've noticed in my work is that it not only fills up the cup of the leadership role, and but it also does of the person that they're modeling the behavior for, leading by example, and that just becomes infectious, and it's positivity all around. So there's a way to take it from personal to systemic, which is sort of how I see myself in my rebranding
Yeah.
focus, if you will. But yeah, and the biggest challenge I hear right now is how to create a culture remotely. I think many organizations are struggling with that.
Yep, I will go ahead and raise my hand with that one. We just officially encouraged and kind of imposed going back to work at least once a day into the office. Our team works extremely hard, and so it's trying to find that balance of understanding that there is a level of living life, finding that balance of flexibility. People have kids and families, and being and honoring that, but at the same time, still finding that face time together to build that culture together, to build the camaraderie as you grow. It's a tough balance, and it's tough to make those decisions.
Absolutely. I know. And it's something that we have to be mindful of being present right now. Again, it's like we want to build for the future, but I think if anything, we have been taught we don't know
Yeah.
what will unfold. So So that's something that also comes up with, executives is what is the balance look like for them? And practicing self-care, I'm sure as you know, it doesn't have to be glamorous. It can be getting the right amount of sleep, it can be hydration, but whatever your ritual of connection is that serves you well, making sure you are sort of responsible in honoring your own boundary.
It's true. What would be a piece of advice that you could give an executive, who is struggling to find that balance? Because we all talk about mental health now, especially like you mentioned, COVID, going through that, our definition of balance has changed. Our definition of what work hours have changed. Everything of just maintaining that stability while being alone has changed. So, what would you give as a piece of advice for someone who is just truly struggling and is just needing that, that push to go into the right direction?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's really just about staying curious. I know that sounds really sort of abstract, but it's, as you were talking about, leaning into the differences. I mean, that's what diversity is, and sort of having a form of being like, hey, how do you practice self-care? Are you taking some of your calls that only require being on a mobile device on audio? I know that's a foreign concept now. But like maybe you're doing that when you take a walk or you're on a bike ride. And so just, asking people and honestly getting to know, and it can be other executives, it can be the people in your organization, and then sort of say, hey, maybe I'll try that on for size. And I think that's a way again to sort of like be collaborative and moving together and figure out what works for one person. Maybe I'll try it on for size, and maybe it becomes an organizational wide, sort of effect, which is always great.
No, absolutely. And I think that even just as a leader in the organization, if you can show your team that it's a safe space to work a little bit differently, still productively, still
Mhm.
efficiently, but differently. And I think that that's to your point, empowering, having that level of empathy and compassion for your teammates, for your other executives, because we're all human at the end of the day. We're all going through this experience. And I think if we can take care of each other, it's going to make it easier to also take care of ourselves.
Yes, well said. So
Well, wonderful. Well, Nita, I know you have a lot to do. You are a busy, busy woman. I want to thank you so very much for your insights today and just showing how important it is as an executive and as a person to just take care of themselves. Where can people find you if they want to start, jumping into business coaching, learning from you? Where can we look you up?
yeah, sure. I have a website that's going through a brand refresh, which will be dropping shortly. It is nitabatta.com. And my email address, nita@nitabatta.com. So, yes, I'm on LinkedIn, and this was a total pleasure to be able to have this space to talk. And, I think that many more conversations will unfold as we try to move forward in a positive mindset.
Absolutely. I think it's important we break that stigma down. We bring mental health into the workplace, and you are leading that effort. And we wish you all of the luck in the world on your next efforts and endeavors.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Absolutely. Take care, Nita, and we will talk soon.
Okay.